Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. When making a decision of minor importance, I have always found it advantageous to consider all the pros and cons. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. How bold one gets when one is sure of being loved. Beauty has no obvious use, nor is there any clear cultural necessity for it, yet civilization could not do without it. Unexpressed emotions will never die, they are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. The intention that man should be happy is not in the plan of creation. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. Religious doctrines are all illusions, they do not admit of proof, and no one can be compelled to consider them as true or to believe in them. Where does a thought go when it's forgotten? Love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. A woman should soften but not weaken a man. The more the fruits of knowledge become accessible to men, the more widespread is the decline of religious belief. Loneliness and darkness have just robbed me of my valuables. Everywhere I go I find a poet has been there before me. A man should not strive to eliminate his complexes but to get into accord with them. They are legitimately what directs his conduct in the world. In the depths of my heart I can't help being convinced that my dear fellow men, with a few exceptions, are worthless. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. Immorality, no less than morality, has at all times found support in religion. Poets are masters of us ordinary men, in knowledge of the mind, because they drink at streams which we have not yet made accessible to science. The madman is a dreamer awake. When a love relationship is at its height, there is no room left for any interest in the environment. A pair of lovers are sufficient to themselves. Life, as we find it, is too hard for us. It brings us too many pains, disappointments, and impossible tasks. The ego is not master in its own house. Words have a magical power, they can bring either the greatest happiness or deepest despair. Neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. The virtuous man contents himself with dreaming that which the wicked man does in actual life. Men are strong so long as they represent a strong idea, they become powerless when they oppose it. He does not believe that does not live according to his belief. The behavior of a human being in sexual matters is often a prototype for the whole of his other modes of reaction in life. Instinct of love toward an object demands a mastery to obtain it, and if a person feels they can't control the object or feel threatened by it, they act negatively toward it. Where the questions of religion are concerned, people are guilty of every possible kind of insincerity and intellectual misdemeanor. Public self is a conditioned construct of the inner psychological self. Love in the form of longing and deprivation lowers the self-regard. There are no mistakes. It is a predisposition of human nature to consider an unpleasant idea untrue, and then it is easy to find arguments against it. We may insist as often as we like that man's intellect is powerless in comparison to his instinctual life, and we may be right in this. The dream is the liberation of the spirit from the pressure of external nature, a detachment of the soul from the fetters of matter. He who knows how to wait need make no concessions. When a woman wants sex, she always talking about her former lovers. The liberty of the individual is no gift of civilization. It was greatest before there was any civilization. I never want to belong to any club that would have someone like me as a member. Conservatism is too often a welcome excuse for lazy minds, loath to adapt themselves to fast-changing conditions. Our memory has no guarantees at all, and yet we bow more often than is objectively justified to the compulsion to believe what it says. We are so constituted that we can gain intense pleasure only from the contrast, and only very little from the condition itself. Dream is the dreamer's own psychical act. America is the most grandiose experiment the world has seen, but I am afraid it is not going to be a success. The unconscious of one human being can react upon that of another without passing through the conscious. Words and magic were in the beginning one and the same thing, and even today words retain much of their magical power. Time spent with cats is never wasted. The more perfect a person is on the outside, the more demons they have on the inside. Everyone owes nature a death. Where such men love they have no desire, and where they desire they cannot love. Nothing that is mentally our own can ever be lost.